The Galactic Military Academy was a marvel of engineering, a massive station orbiting the twin stars of the Draxar system. Its domes shimmered with a mix of steel and translucent alloys, reflecting the swirling colors of the nearby nebula. For centuries, this academy had stood as a symbol of intergalactic unity, a place where the most powerful warriors from countless species honed their skills. Yet, for all its diversity, humans were conspicuously absent until now. Alex Carter, the first human cadet to be admitted, stepped off the sleek transport ship and onto the Academy's docking platform. The moment her boots touched the polished surface, the air seemed to shift. Conversations among the other cadets paused as heads turned to take in the newcomer. She stood out, not just because she was human, but because of her size. At 5, Alex was diminutive compared to the towering forms of the alien recruits, many of whom stood over 8 feet tall with rippling muscles, chitinous exoskeletons, or scales that gleamed under the artificial light. Her uniform, a standard-issue gray jumpsuit with the Academy's emblem stitched on the chest, seemed almost comically simple next to the ornate armor plates or adaptive cloaks of her peers. A bag slung over her shoulder was her only luggage, containing everything she owned, a stark contrast to the elaborate transport crates of weaponry and personal effects carried by other cadets. "Is that it?" A voice sneered from somewhere behind her. "That's the human?" Alex didn't flinch at the comment, though she heard the low rumble of laughter that followed. Instead, she continued forward, her face an impassive mask. Her gray eyes scanned the sprawling station, noting the intricate layouts of training areas, living quarters, and towering arenas visible even from the docking platform. She wasn't here to make friends, she was here to prove herself. By the time Alex reached the registration hall, word of her arrival had spread like wildfire. The Academy's halls were abuzz with whispers and speculations. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as Deathworlders, creatures from a high-gravity, resource-scarce planet. Their adaptability and resilience were the stuff of legend. But that was where the admiration ended. To many of the Academy's elite, humans were considered primitive. They lacked the natural strength of Titanus warriors, the psychic abilities of the Zephyrins, or the technological enhancements of the Mechavores. "Did you see her? She's tiny," scoffed a tall, insectoid cadet, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. "She won't last a week," a reptilian cadet hissed, his scales flashing an iridescent green. "Probably here as a political gesture, nothing more." In the corner of the hall stood Zevrak, the Academy's top cadet and a member of the Titanus species. Towering at nearly 9 feet tall, his body was a mass of pure muscle covered in deep blue skin that shimmered faintly under the overhead lights. He was a legend among the recruits, undefeated in combat and the epitome of what the Academy sought to produce. Zevrak's golden eyes narrowed as he observed Alex from a distance. "A human?" he muttered, his deep voice vibrating with disdain. "This is an insult." Alex approached the registration desk, her every step deliberate. Behind the desk, an AI attendant with a crystalline body processed her data with cold efficiency. A holographic ID hovered in front of her, displaying her name, age, and homeworld Earth. The AI's mechanical voice welcomed her in Standard Galactic. "Cadet Alex Carter, welcome to the Galactic Military Academy. Your quarters have been assigned in Sector D13. Please proceed to the orientation hall for briefing." Before Alex could turn, a massive shadow loomed over her. She glanced up to see Zevrak standing just a foot away, his sheer presence overwhelming. His golden eyes bore into her, and a smirk curled at the edge of his lips. Well, Zevrak rumbled, his voice carrying across the hall and drawing the attention of everyone nearby. The Academy must be desperate to let in. This, he gestured to Alex as if she were some curious specimen in a zoo. Alex met his gaze without flinching, her expression calm. "Do you need something?" she asked, her tone devoid of emotion. Zevrak laughed, a deep, booming sound that echoed off the walls. "I don't need anything from you, human. But I do have a question. Do they train you in combat, or do they just throw you in the wilderness and hope you survive? The crowd around them chuckled, and the tension in the air grew palpable. Alex didn't react to the insult. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if analyzing him. "I guess you'll find out," she said simply before stepping around him to continue on her way. The response was unexpected. Zevrak's smirk faltered for a moment, and the crowd murmured in surprise. There was no fear in Alex's voice, no anger, only quiet confidence. It was a stark contrast to the reactions he was used to provoking. Alex's assigned quarters were small and utilitarian. A single room with a cot, a desk, and a storage locker. She unpacked her bag methodically, placing a few personal items on the desk: a photo of her family, a small journal, and a knife with a well-worn handle. Each item told a story of her life on Earth, a life of hard training and relentless preparation for this very moment. As she secured her belongings, the door to her quarters slid open, revealing another human figure. Commander Yelrin, a human officer assigned to oversee her integration, stepped inside. A scar ran across his cheek, a testament to his own years of service. "You made quite an impression out there," Yelrin said, his voice low but approving. "Zevrak doesn't usually waste his time on new recruits." Alex shrugged. "I didn't come here to impress him." Yelrin studied her for a moment, nodding. "Good. You'll need that focus. The next few weeks will be brutal. They'll test you in ways you've never imagined, and they'll be watching, waiting for you to fail." "I won't," Alex said, her tone steady. Yelrin's lips twitched into a faint smile. "I believe you. But remember, this isn't just about you. You're the first human here. Everything you do reflects on all of us. Don't give them a reason to doubt." With that, he left, the door sliding shut behind him. Alex sat on the edge of her cot, her mind already racing through the challenges ahead. She knew the odds were stacked against her. The academy was designed to push even the strongest to their limits, and she was considered the weakest link before even stepping into the training grounds. But Alex didn't care about the odds. She hadn't come this far to back down. The buzz surrounding Alex Carter's arrival had not died down by the time the cadets gathered in the massive central training hall. The hall was a colossal structure, its domed ceiling stretching so high that the distant lights resembled stars. The air buzzed with energy as recruits from dozens of species prepared for the day's regimen. Despite the Academy's emphasis on unity, cliques were unavoidable, with species tending to train alongside their own. Humans, of course, were an exception because there was only one. Alex stood alone in a corner of the hall, meticulously wrapping her hands with training tape. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as though she were tuning out the cacophony of voices and clanking weapons around her. It wasn't nerves that kept her silent, it was focus. She was here to prove herself, and every action mattered. Across the room, Zevrak observed her with a predatory gleam in his golden eyes. He was surrounded by his usual entourage of Titaness warriors, all of them built like living monuments, their bodies radiating brute strength. Zevrak's smirk widened as one of his comrades leaned in. "Why waste your time with her?" the warrior asked, his voice a deep rumble. "She's not worth the effort." "She's worth the lesson," Zevrak replied, his gaze fixed on Alex. "If the Academy wants to entertain this farce, we might as well show them what happens when a creature out of its depth tries to swim with giants." As the morning drills commenced, the cadets were split into groups, each assigned to a different combat instructor. Alex found herself paired with an insectoid trainer named Chirek, whose multiple arms wielded a variety of training tools with unnerving precision. Chirek didn't seem particularly interested in coddling the human cadet, which Alex appreciated. She preferred being treated as an equal, even if that meant extra challenges. "Your species lacks the natural exoskeleton of the Durocs, the regenerative abilities of the Zephyrins, or the enhanced vision of the Drow," Chirek said matter-of-factly as he handed Alex a training spear. "Your only advantage is adaptability. Let's see if it's enough." Alex nodded, gripping the weapon firmly. Understood. As the drill began, Alex quickly demonstrated her ability to learn on the fly. Her movements were fluid, her stance shifting in response to her opponent's attacks. Shurik's antennae twitched with interest as he watched her sidestep a feint and land a clean strike against a towering Droll cadet. It was clear that Alex's strength wasn't in brute force but in precision and strategy. However, her success didn't go unnoticed by Zevrak. From across the hall, he watched as Alex continued to adapt, deflecting blows and finding openings that others missed. The sight irritated him more than he cared to admit. How could a human, so small and seemingly fragile, excel in an environment designed for the galaxy's strongest warriors? The tipping point came during a break between drills. Cadets mingled in the open courtyard, their voices echoing off the stone walls. Alex was seated alone on a bench, sipping from a hydration pack when Zevrak approached. His presence was impossible to ignore. He cast a shadow over her as he loomed above, arms crossed and smirk firmly in place. "You've been busy, haven't you, little human?" Zevrak's voice was loud enough to draw the attention of nearby cadets who immediately turned to watch the interaction. Impressive, really. But do you honestly believe you belong here? Alex looked up, her expression calm. "I'm here, aren't I?" The crowd murmured in anticipation. Zevrak chuckled, the sound low and menacing. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts won't keep you standing when you face someone like me." Alex set her hydration pack down and met his gaze. "Do you have a point, or are you just here to talk?" Zevrak's smirk widened. "I'm here to offer you a chance to prove yourself. One-on-one, in the arena. No excuses, no holding back. Let's see if you're as good as you think you are." The courtyard fell silent as everyone waited for Alex's response. It was an impossible situation. Zevrak was the Academy's top cadet, undefeated in every challenge he had faced. To accept his offer would be to step into almost certain defeat. Yet Alex didn't hesitate. "Fine," she said, standing up. "When?" The crowd erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Zevrak blinked, momentarily caught off guard by her immediate acceptance. He had expected hesitation, maybe even fear. Instead, Alex's voice was steady, her expression unreadable. "Tomorrow," Zevrak said, recovering quickly. "The main arena. Noon." Alex nodded once. "I'll be there." As the cadets dispersed, the courtyard buzzing with excitement over the upcoming match, Alex returned to her quarters. The room was as sparse as ever, but it was the one place where she could block out the noise and focus on what mattered. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, she closed her eyes and began to review everything she knew about Zevrak. She had observed him during training sessions, noting his reliance on brute strength and intimidation. His attacks were powerful but predictable, his movements designed to overwhelm rather than outmaneuver. Alex's strength, on the other hand, lay in her ability to read her opponent and adapt in real time. She didn't need to match his strength, she just needed to exploit his weaknesses. The next morning, Alex woke early and headed to the training hall. The arena loomed in the distance, its massive gates promising a spectacle unlike any other. She spent the hours leading up to the match running through drills, sharpening her reflexes and refining her strategy. Commander Yelrin watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. "You're taking a big risk," he said finally, approaching her as she finished a set of agility exercises. Alex straightened, wiping sweat from her brow. "I know." Yelrin studied her for a moment before nodding. "Good. Just remember, this isn't about proving yourself to them. It's about proving yourself to yourself." "I won't forget," Alex said. As noon approached, the arena gates opened, and the cadets began filing in. The stands filled quickly, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. At the center of the arena stood Zevrak, his imposing figure casting a long shadow across the sand. He held a massive warhammer in one hand, its surface etched with intricate designs that glowed faintly with energy. Alex stepped into the arena moments later, her frame dwarfed by the sheer scale of the space. In her hands was a standard-issue training staff, its simplicity a stark contrast to Zevrak's weapon. Yet her grip was steady, her stance confident. The match was set. The challenge had been issued, and Alex Carter was ready to show the Galactic Military Academy what humanity was truly capable of. The arena was alive with anticipation. Its massive walls, constructed of shimmering alloys that absorbed the twin suns' light, seemed to pulse with the energy of the gathered cadets. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, their cheers and murmurs creating a deafening roar that echoed throughout the Grand Coliseum. The cadets weren't just here to watch a fight, they were here to witness a spectacle, a clash between the Academy's strongest and the unlikeliest of challengers. In the center of the arena stood Zevrak, the undefeated champion of the Galactic Military Academy. His massive frame was a testament to his titanous heritage, 8 feet of pure muscle, his blue skin glowing faintly in the sunlight. The warhammer he wielded, adorned with glowing runes, was an extension of his dominance, a weapon so heavy that most species couldn't even lift it. Zevrak basked in the crowd's adoration, his golden eyes scanning the stands with a smirk that exuded confidence. Opposite him, Alex Carter walked steadily into the arena. Her appearance was starkly different from her opponent's. No towering frame, no glowing weapon. She wore the Academy's standard training uniform, her only armament a simple combat staff. Yet her expression was calm, her gray eyes focused entirely on Zevrak. The cheers and jeers of the crowd seemed to fade into the background as she stepped into the circle, her footsteps steady and deliberate. The arena's announcer, a holographic projection of an AI, materialized above the center. Its voice boomed across the arena, commanding attention. Cadet Zevrak of Titanus versus Cadet Alex Carter of Earth. A single-round combat match. Victory by knockout, incapacitation, or surrender. The sound of a gong reverberated through the arena, signaling the start of the duel. Zevrak wasted no time, launching himself toward Alex with a speed that belied his massive size. His warhammer swung in a wide arc, the force of it slicing through the air with a deafening whoosh. Alex didn't move until the last possible moment. She sidestepped, her movements quick and precise, letting the warhammer slam into the ground where she had been standing. The impact sent a shockwave through the sand, causing nearby spectators to gasp. But Alex remained unshaken. She was already moving, her staff spinning in her hands as she positioned herself just outside Zevrak's reach. "You're quick," Zevrak growled, pulling his hammer free from the ground. "But speed won't save you." He lunged again, this time feinting to the left before swinging his hammer from the right. Alex anticipated the move, ducking under the strike and darting forward. Her staff struck out, connecting with the back of Zevrak's knee. The blow was precise, targeting a joint not protected by the natural armor of his titanous skin. Zevrak stumbled, momentarily off balance. The crowd erupted in shock. No one had ever seen him falter. Alex didn't hesitate, following up with a rapid series of strikes to his legs and torso. Each blow was calculated, aimed at points that disrupted his center of gravity. But Zevrak was no ordinary opponent. He recovered quickly, using his immense strength to propel himself backward and create distance. His golden eyes burned with anger as he assessed his opponent. "You're more trouble than I expected," he admitted, his voice carrying across the arena. "But this ends now." He slammed the butt of his hammer into the ground, activating the runes etched along its surface. A surge of energy rippled outward, distorting the air around him. Alex felt the shift immediately. The ground beneath her feet became unstable, and the very air seemed to resist her movements. Zevrak charged again, his hammer glowing with raw power. This time Alex was forced to go on the defensive, her staff spinning in intricate patterns to deflect the hammer's strikes. Each collision sent vibrations through her arms, but she held her ground, her mind working furiously to adapt to the new conditions. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, their eyes glued to the duel. Some cheered for Zevrak, confident in his ultimate victory. Others watched Alex with growing respect, marveling at her ability to hold her own against the Academy's top cadet. As the duel continued, Alex began to notice patterns in Zevrak's attacks. His reliance on brute strength made him predictable. His swings, while powerful, left openings that she could exploit. She shifted her strategy, using her smaller size and agility to her advantage. When Zevrak raised his hammer for an overhead strike, Alex moved in close, her staff jabbing into his ribs before he could bring the weapon down. The blow forced him to stagger, giving her a split-second opening. She capitalized on it, spinning around and delivering a sweeping kick to his legs. This time, Zevrak fell to one knee, his warhammer sinking into the sand. The crowd erupted in gasps and cheers. For the first time, it seemed that Zevrak might actually lose. "You've got spirit," Zevrak growled, his voice tinged with both frustration and respect. "But you won't win." Alex didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her focus was absolute, her body moving with precision born of years of training. She had studied opponents like Zevrak before, fighters who relied on intimidation and overwhelming power. They were formidable, but not invincible. Zevrak roared, surging to his feet with a burst of energy. He swung his hammer in a wide arc, forcing Alex to retreat. But this time, she didn't just dodge, she countered. As the hammer passed by, she closed the distance, her staff striking the back of Zevrak's hand. The force of the blow caused him to lose his grip, and the hammer fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Armed but far from defeated, Zevrak lunged at Alex with his bare hands, his massive fists aiming to crush her. Zevrak stumbled, his momentum carrying him forward until he fell face first into the sand. Before he could recover, Alex was on him. She placed the tip of her staff against the back of his neck, her stance firm and unyielding. The arena fell silent. The sight of Zevrak, the undefeated champion, pinned by the Academy's smallest cadet, was almost too unbelievable to process. "Yield," Alex said, her voice calm but commanding. For a moment, Zevrak didn't move. Then, slowly, he raised a hand in surrender. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, their disbelief giving way to admiration. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "Winner Cadet Alex Carter of Earth." As the crowd began to disperse, Alex extended a hand to Zevrak. He hesitated, then accepted it, allowing her to help him to his feet. There was no animosity in his golden eyes, only respect. "You've earned your place here," he said, his voice low but sincere. "Don't waste it." Alex nodded. "I don't intend to." As she walked out of the arena, the cadets who had once dismissed her now looked at her with newfound respect. She had done more than win a duel. She had proven that humanity, despite its perceived weaknesses, was a force to be reckoned with. And this was only the beginning. The arena's roar echoed in Alex Carter's ears as she left the sands behind. The victory felt surreal, but her expression betrayed no emotion. She had faced Zevrak, the Academy's undefeated champion, and emerged victorious. Yet Alex knew that her fight wasn't over, it had only just begun. Behind her, Zevrak stood, brushing sand from his massive frame. He watched her retreating form with an expression that was a mixture of respect and something deeper, understanding. The crowd that had moments ago cheered for her now parted in silence as she walked through the exit, their gazes filled with awe, curiosity, and for some, grudging acceptance. Alex Carter was no longer just a human cadet. She had become a symbol. Back in her quarters, Alex stripped off her sweat-soaked uniform and dropped onto her cot. The events of the day replayed in her mind: the deafening crowd, the crushing weight of Zevrak's attacks, and the moment she had placed her staff at his neck, forcing him to yield. For the first time since her arrival, she allowed herself a moment to breathe, her adrenaline ebbing away and leaving behind a deep fatigue. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. She sat up, her hand instinctively moving toward the knife on her desk before she realized who it was. "Come in," she said, her voice steady. The door slid open to reveal Commander Yellorin. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes carried a glint of pride. He stepped inside and leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Impressive," he said, breaking the silence. "You've done what no one else has managed to do." Alex shrugged, her exhaustion evident. "I just did what I came here to do." Yellorin chuckled softly. "You've done more than that, Alex. You've changed the way they see us. But don't let this victory go to your head. The Academy isn't about winning one fight, it's about surviving the long haul. And now, you've made yourself a target." Alex nodded. She had expected this. "I'll handle it." Yellorin pushed off the wall and gave her a firm look. "I know you will. But remember, you're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're representing all of humanity. Don't forget what's at stake." The next day, Alex returned to the training hall. The atmosphere was noticeably different. Where there had once been mockery and scorn, there was now a mixture of curiosity and respect. Cadets who had ignored her before now watched her closely, their conversations hushed as she walked by. Some even nodded in acknowledgement, a small but significant gesture in a place where respect had to be earned. Zevrak was already there, his massive form towering over a group of Titanus cadets. When Alex entered, his golden eyes met hers across the room. For a moment, the hall fell silent, the tension palpable. Then, to everyone's surprise, Zevrak gave her a nod, a subtle but clear sign of respect. The other Titanus cadets exchanged glances, unsure how to react, but Alex simply nodded back before continuing to her training station. She wasn't here to gloat. She was here to work. Over the next few weeks, Alex's life at the Academy began to change. The challenges she faced didn't lessen, if anything, they grew more intense. Instructors pushed her harder, testing her limits in ways that often felt cruel. But Alex didn't break. She adapted, just as she always had, using her wits and resilience to overcome obstacles that would have crushed others. Her fellow cadets, once skeptical of her presence, began to see her in a new light. During team exercises, Alex's strategic thinking often turned the tide in their favor. In survival drills, her resourcefulness saved her group from failure. Slowly but surely, she became an integral part of the Academy's ecosystem, proving that humanity had more to offer than brute strength or advanced technology. Zevrak, too, underwent a transformation. Though he remained a fierce competitor, his interactions with Alex shifted from antagonistic to collaborative. They were paired together in several exercises, and their combined strengths made them an unstoppable team. Their unlikely partnership became a topic of fascination among the cadets, a symbol of what the Academy was meant to represent: unity through diversity. As the Academy's midterm trials approached, the cadets were informed of their final test, a simulation designed to push them to their absolute limits. The scenario was simple but brutal, a mock invasion of the Academy by a hostile force. The cadets would be split into two groups, defenders and invaders, and tasked with outmaneuvering each other to achieve their objectives. Alex was assigned to the defenders, her team tasked with holding the central command tower against overwhelming odds. To her surprise, Zevrak was placed under her command, a decision that raised eyebrows among the cadets. But Zevrak didn't question it. Instead, he approached Alex with a simple statement: "Tell me where you need me." Alex didn't hesitate. "Frontline. We'll need your strength to hold them back while the rest of us fortify the tower." Zevrak nodded, his respect for her evident. The other cadets followed suit, trusting Alex's leadership despite their initial reservations. The simulation was chaos. The invading team attacked with relentless force, their strategy designed to exploit the defenders' weaknesses. But Alex had anticipated their moves, her keen analytical mind piecing together their patterns and adapting her team's strategy in real time. Zevrak held the front line with a ferocity that even the invaders couldn't match, buying Alex the time she needed to secure their position. As the simulation reached its climax, Alex orchestrated a counterattack that turned the tide. Using Zevrak's strength as a distraction, she led a small team through a hidden passage to flank the invaders. The maneuver caught them off guard, and within minutes, the defenders had regained control of the battlefield. When the simulation ended, the announcer's voice declared the defenders victorious. The cadets erupted into cheers, their previous divisions forgotten in the wake of their shared triumph. For the first time, the Academy felt like what it was meant to be, a place where the strengths of many species came together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. After the trial, Alex stood at the edge of the training hall, watching as the cadets celebrated. Zevrak approached her, his massive frame casting a long shadow over her smaller form. "You did well," he said simply. Alex looked up at him, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "So did you." Zevrak chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "You've proven your point, Alex Carter. You belong here." As he walked away, Alex allowed herself a moment to reflect. She had come to the Academy as an outsider, the first human in a place that had never seen her kind. She had faced ridicule, skepticism, and impossible odds. But she had persevered, not just for herself, but for humanity. And in doing so, she had opened the door for others to follow. The Galactic Military Academy would never be the same, and neither would she. For Alex Carter, this was just the beginning.